Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have a chance to take a look at something insanely beautiful, something also that isn't Mattel, as lately we've had a lot of Mattel here on the channel, but something that is much better than anything Mattel could produce, as we have one of the beasts of the Mesozoic Tyrannosaur series models here to take a look at. Not only that, we actually have the 1/18th scale Tyrannosaurus Rex. This is the main line version. This is the standard version that pretty much everybody would be getting if you didn't partake in the Kickstarter to get that Kickstarter exclusive version, or you could actually purchase that, I believe, on Big Bad Toy Store if it's still available. I will include a link in the description actually to that one so that you can grab it if you missed it. But this one again is the standard version. And I did have an opportunity to take a look at the grayish unpainted version, which I painted up myself not long ago in a video. This is the first time I have a chance to take a look at this insanely impressive, massive version of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. And it really does look super impressive here at first glance, through the window area of the packaging. The packaging itself is incredible. We have a beautiful image of the Rex here to the right, and then, of course, Tyrannosaur series down there at the bottom, and Tyrannosaurus Rex on the left, as well as the Beasts of the Mesozoic logo up there at the top. If we turn the box around, we again have the Beasts of the Mesozoic logo over here on the side. And then here on the back, we have another insanely huge image of the Rex, the figure that is contained within, as well as some images down here of the other figures from Wave 1 that we can see we have coming, which is like the Guanlong, the Dailong, the 1/35th scale version of this Rex, as well as the 1/18th scale Eutyrannus and 1/18th scale Juvenile T-Rex, which will go really nicely with this version when that is released. But anyway, I am beyond excited to take a look at something like this here in person, because it has been a long time since we were initially teased with the images of the Tyrannosaur series. And again, I've pretty much been counting the days until I could get one of the painted versions in my hands, especially this large version, the 1/18th scale version. So let's pop it out of the box and check it out. So first of all, we've got our card, again sporting that really beautiful image that we had seen on the front of the box. They always include the best artwork with these Beasts of the Mesozoic releases. David really goes above and beyond to give us incredible artwork with our figures. And then here on the back, you can see a little dinosaur toy photography, as well as some information on the T-Rex itself. And then down here, it states that the art was actually made by R.J. Palmer, so we now know who is responsible for the artwork here for that card. Beautiful, beautiful card. And then you also have the tail assembly instructions, something that you've always been given when it comes to these Beasts of the Mesozoic releases, which is very important to pay attention to, because the tails of these figures can sometimes be a bit difficult, and also the legs as well can be a bit difficult to get on. And you do not want to damage your figure, trust me, that is definitely the last thing you would want to do. But on top of all of that, we've also got some alternate feet here for our T-Rex. We've got some feet here with like the toes touching as the Rex would be walking along. You also have some feet that are kind of laying flat, but the toes are closer together. And on top of that, you've got the alternate legs here, again, which you would apply those feet to give yourself some alternate poses. These, as you can see, for the feet, the toes are spread much further apart, which you can see just looking at those toes, how super bird-like those feet are for the Rex. And then on top of that, you've also got a base for your Tyrannosaurus to stand on if you would like to display it that way, which is always fun to have. Really nice looking base right there. And on top of that, we have the star of the show, who is huge, absolutely gigantic here with the 1/18th scale T-Rex. Try to get him standing, and even though he's leaning a little forward because I didn't position him perfectly, it is standing, and man, is that ever incredible. Like, easily one of the most impressive visuals I have ever seen when it comes to a dinosaur toy. That is phenomenal. And the paintwork here in person is honestly amazing, like way better than I was expecting it to be. And it's not that I thought it would be bad, it's just that like when I had seen this paint scheme, I just didn't realize how nice it was going to look in hand. I was like, oh, it looks really nice, but I think I was a little bit more excited for like the Walking with Dinosaurs version of the T-Rex, but honestly, having this one here, I think my opinion has now changed. I think I might be more excited about this than any of the other Tyrannosaurs that are coming out, or at least as far as the Tyrannosaurus Rex goes. I feel like this is definitely the nicest looking version, and the coloration, again, is just beautiful here, and it is massive. This figure is huge, so if you get the 1/18th scale version, be aware that you are getting a very large figure, and on top of that, it's also quite heavy, like impressively heavy. I had quite the interesting time just trying to get this massive baby out of that box right there, but boy am I ever impressed instantly by this. This is definitely one of the most beautiful Tyrannosaurus models I have ever seen, so without further ado, let's jump to a closer look at it right now. Now, as far as the sculpt of the Rex goes, we have actually already gone over the sculpt in the original review that I had up of the gray Rex that I painted up with the prehistoric planet color scheme, so we don't really need to dive into the sculpt too much again. What we really need to take a look at would be anything different between this one and the other one, and that of course would be the coloration and size. So straight away you can see that paint-wise this thing is beautiful. Like, there is some really nice looking coloration on this, and it looks actually extremely natural, which is something that the Beasts of the Mesozoic often does, is gives you kind of, well, this isn't even all that much of a brighter, more colorful color scheme, but it definitely is quite colorful. There's some beautiful, really, bright tones of like yellows and reds and stuff on it, but they take coloration that you wouldn't normally expect to look so natural and so nice on a dinosaur figure, and they just dive right in. They give you that coloration on the figure, and it always looks so super nice and so natural, and that is exactly the same case with this Rex. You can see that we have, again, some nice browns, and the browns kind of stripe here up toward the snout. You can see a little bit more of that kind of brown running down there. We also have this nice kind of like a light yellowish tone throughout the majority of the face, but in between that there's kind of like a reddish wash, which highlights every scale, and you can see that here if we get nice and close. The paintwork honestly on this is incredible, extremely lifelike, and you can see as we lead back here how the scales again really pop and really shine thanks to the way that it's been painted with nice dry brushing techniques. You can see just variation of like reds and kind of like some darker dry brushing and stuff over those areas, and again it all looks really natural on the Rex. As you move up here, you've got some more kind of yellowish stripes here in the palette. You can see that they're kind of outlined with a red, and then you have like this reddish brown type version of a coloration here. It's like a variation of brown, but I guess it might have like a reddish wash applied to it as well, so it really again has that reddish type of a look. You can also see some black running up and over the top of the palette. The nostrils are really nicely highlighted with a darker tone of color. You have a black there that kind of runs around the eye. The eye is painted very nicely with a blue, given a black pupil, and that eye shines very nicely, very realistically. You can also see that we have here and then up here, as well as right above the eye, all painted with kind of like an off-white, but they sort of have like a dark wash, like definitely a nice dark, maybe a grayish wash applied to here, but this kind of seems like maybe a reddish wash or even a reddish dry brushing maybe. There's just so much color added to these. It is crazy how nice this looks, and again all of the coloration looks super smooth. All the transitions are extremely nicely done and very realistically done. As you see up here on the top of the head, again this entire area running up and over the top of the head of the Rex is very nicely brought to life with the way that it's painted. Also, of course, we have tons of articulation, and you can see the inside of the mouth sports some nice pinkish tones in there. It seems as though we've got like a nice reddish wash as well. The teeth are painted with a very nice kind of an off-white. Everything seems to have a beautiful gloss coat in there. Try to get an angle where I'm not going to smack anything back here. You can see everything looks really good and very realistic as far as the paintwork goes on the inside of the mouth, and that gloss coat clearly is quite abundant throughout the entire mouth. You can see again, of course, on the lower jaw, the side here, that skin flap and everything, and then of course our articulated tongue in there on top of everything. So really nice paintwork in the inside of the mouth as well. As we lead up here into the top of the head, you have some really nice blacks, but you also have like a brownish dry brushing, so it highlights all of those kind of wrinkles in the skin and pretty much every ounce of detail. And that's one thing that the Beasts of the Mesozoic is always really good at, and that's bringing their paintwork to life in really nice ways with dry brushing and washes. You can see again, just like here, perfect example. You have a nice yellowish tone kind of running down here, sort of like a nice squiggly line running down the course of the neck, but in that yellowish tone there's also a reddish wash which highlights that scale detail quite beautifully. And you can see again a nice smooth transition as we lead down back to that kind of reddish brown here. You've got more of the yellow here on the underside running along, and you can really appreciate, I think, how good the sculpting and detailing is now having one of these painted versions of the Tyrannosaurs. As we continue to move down a little further, we have this blackish tone mixing with a brownish tone, so we have some really nice variation of color here. And you can see it's just like a black and a brown blended together really nicely that kind of transitions back and forth in a nice natural way. We also have more kind of reddish browns right here, as well as some more like yellowish spots showing up right there. Moving down into the stomach region, you can see that dark tone striping down into the stomach, and we have a darker tone of like a yellowish brown right there. And you have more of those kind of squiggles and lines running down, as well as more kind of reddish browns, and then you have more almost like orangish tones as you move down to a yellow. So much color variation on this Tyrannosaur. And then as you move down here into the arm, you can get nice and close and look at how nice the detailing as well as the paintwork is here in the arm as well. As you can again see how nice of a job they've done of highlighting all of the detail. We've got those nice reds and everything moving down the arm, but we also have a nice dry brushing as well as it looks like a wash applied to make sure that that detail looks super realistic and lifelike. You've also got the nicely painted nails with a black, very nice glossy black. And then as you move down to the underside, again you transition from that yellow to an even lighter yellow here for the underside, which also sports that kind of reddish wash in there, so that that area is also highlighted and very realistic. You know, there's just so much depth to the paint jobs of these figures. As you move along, you can see some more of that kind of red and stuff running up here. You've also got, again, more of that mixture of the black and brown. As you move down, you've got a few more kind of splotchy areas of that darker reddish brown coloration, more of that kind of orange leading back into the yellow and stuff. And then as you continue to move down, you can see that we stripe down a little bit further with that darker tone, and then we get down here and we're back to those reddish tones. And again, that really nice dry brushing, really bringing that detail out as you move down into the foot sculpt. And the scoots are all painted with a dark variation of brown. And yet again, look at how nice and really beautifully painted that foot sculpt is. Again, you've got that nice kind of like a light wash in between all of the scales, and they've dry brushed all the scales out. It just looks phenomenal. And of course the nails are all painted very nicely, again with that dark tone. You can also see that the dew claws back there as well are painted, and the nails have a gloss coat. But as you move back up here, again you continue to have that dark tone running along the back, you know, transitioning down to that reddish tone. It's like a reddish brown, but then as we move down we get to like that orange and then to the yellow. Again, really nice transitioning through the colors. And as you move back a little further into the tail, you start to see this kind of darker majority start to diminish, and you can see that now we just have it running along the spinal column and striping down, and it becomes even less as you move out, as we now transition to just a striping with, you know, sections in between missing that darker tone before we actually reach the tip of the tail where it completely transitions back to that dark tone. But the stripes and everything look really nice, really natural as you move through. And again, as we move down, just look at how nice and smooth the transitions are between those reds, oranges, yellows, all of that coloration. It just looks so super nice on this Rex. If we take a quick look here, very carefully move it around and turn it, and take a look at the opposing side. Again, all of the paintwork is just as gorgeous, just as precise over here as it was on the initial side. Look at even that really nice dry brushing right there, highlighting all of those scales so realistically. And all of the paintwork is honestly masterfully done. Like, the Beast of the Mesozoic continues to get better and better when it comes to their paintwork, and honestly I don't think they've ever been better than they are right now after looking at this Rex. This is phenomenal as far as the paintwork goes. Everything is just as lifelike as it gets. I couldn't imagine it getting better than this when it comes to the paintwork. You can see everything looks gorgeous through the entire Tyrannosaur. And then you've also got the base, and you can see the base is basically a nice rocky area. We've got some vegetation and stuff, like maybe some vines or something leading down. And you can see that they've done a really good job of painting this out as well in a very realistic way, as we've got some nice light tones, but you can see a dark brownish wash applied to everything, helping to give it that nice kind of dirty and very realistic look. And even the vegetation here, you can see, includes different tones of color, as we have varying tones of greens throughout and nice browns for those vines and stuff. So a lot of realism added to the base as well. Just beautiful paint work all around, beautiful sculpt work all around. I'm really excited to actually see the Rex up on the base and see how cool the entire thing looks as a whole. And you can of course see the pegs where the feet would go to hold your Tyrannosaur on. Nothing really going on here for the underside, basically just the upper side, and it looks awesome. Definitely very, very nice base to go with the Tyrannosaur. And then we also have the feet. Again, the feet are beautifully sculpted, of course, but also beautifully painted. You can see everything looks just as good on these feet as they did on the original feet that we had taken a look at that are already on the Rex. Beautiful, beautiful work. And then you, of course, have the other feet that, again, are like the toes leaving the ground. You can see you've got one for each side, so it really gives you pretty much every and any pose and display option you could possibly want for your Rex. And all it takes is just switching out some limbs. And then, of course, you have the alternate legs, again, that you've got here with the toes kind of spread apart, but these legs include more articulation, whereas the other legs are kind of like just one solid piece moving down. With the articulation right here, you would have articulation in this spot. It's a little bit stiff. You can see I don't want to force it, because that is one thing that straight away it says not to do, but you also have articulation here, and then down here in the ankle, which can swivel if you choose to, but obviously showing you that you have some really nice posability for your Rex if you use these legs. So again, adding even extra articulation to your Tyrannosaur. Definitely got to loosen this up with a hair dryer, because it's really stiff, and that is one thing very common about the beasts of the Mesozoic. When you purchase their figures, a lot of the joints will end up being stiff, but as soon as you loosen them up, they'll work like a charm. But this is amazing. So let's go ahead and switch out the legs and check it out from there. So again, basically when you want to switch the legs out, you just have to pop the leg off, and it comes off very nicely, very easily, and then you've got to establish which leg would be the one to go back into that spot. Of course, it's the one that I was just trying to move and is a little stiff. Wasn't really paying enough attention to notice if I put a different one in, but you can now see again that it gives you so much options as far as posing your Rex, because you can now have the articulated leg here so that you can move it around. And of course the knee would move a little better if I actually had loosened that up prior to doing that, but you can see the difference between the legs. So obviously we've got the articulated joints here on this one. We don't have that going on this leg. So if you want really posable legs and stuff, you just have to pull that leg off and switch it with the other leg. And then again, same goes for the foot. So you would basically just pop the foot off and then take one of the other feet that you would want to use, and then you put that on. So it gives you just tons of different possibilities as far as displaying your Rex, and again, choosing whatever poses you would like to give your Tyrannosaur. But as far as the articulation goes entirely, so first of all, you've got the articulated jaw. Now that is something we have already seen as far as our closer look, but we do have the articulated jaw. Inside the mouth, you actually have an articulated tongue. You see the tongue moving up in the inside of the mouth right there, so you can articulate the tongue quite nicely. You also have a spot of articulation right here, which you can see, as well as right here, which allows you, and I have to be very careful because my Sideshow Triceratops is right here behind me, and I always have like a bad habit of smacking it. One of these days I'm going to move that to a different spot because it's just not safe. But you have the ability to move the neck and turn the neck for your Rex. If we actually go from up above, you can see again the turn in the neck. You could swivel it around and give it all sorts of positioning for the Tyrannosaur, which helps to give, again, some nice display options for your Rex. You also have the option to move the arm here in the shoulder, as well as the elbow and the wrist can swivel and also go up and down. and again, give you some nice poses for the arms. Not really too much I would want to do with the arms of a T-Rex, but you do have the option to do it regardless. Then you've also got the midsection right here, which is definitely stiff, very stiff. You can see it wiggling a little bit, and again, it's one of those instances where I need to work it in. Yeah, it's not going to move for me right now. That's one of the biggest problems with taking these figures out from the packaging and jumping straight into a review is I don't have time to really move the joints and they stay a little stiff, but you do have the articulation right here in the midsection, and if you've seen any of the Ceratopsian reviews in the past, you'll know how that works, and again, the maneuverability of that joint. But then you also have the articulation in the hip, as well as the knee, and then again, for the opposing leg, you have the area here as well as down here, so you've got two more spots of articulation over there. And then you also have the tail, again right there, here, and then right here, which can give you some nice curves and everything in your tail to also display that area of your Rex. It can also go up, also can go down. Again, lots of display options as far as that goes. So now that we have that out of the way, let's check out the size. So for a length on our massive T-Rex, if I can get that all the way up there in the front of the face, you're looking at about 27.5 inches or 70 centimeters in length, which is ridiculously huge. And then if we bring it back very carefully, and try not to break anything over here. There we go. For a height in the position it's standing at, now of course this would all depend on, well, I almost knocked it over, but where you would like to pose it, you're looking at about the 8 3/4 inch range, just shy of 9 inches, which it could clearly reach if you just position it upward a little bit higher, or about 22.5 centimeters roughly. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our huge 1/18th scale Beasts of the Mesozoic Tyrannosaur series T-Rex. And man, is this thing huge, and boy, is that ever an impressive image. Looking at it here next to these other figures, like, that doesn't get much more impressive than that, honestly, and I feel like this really shows you how super gigantic these 1/18th scale Tyrannosaurs are. And now having this one here, I can't wait to get the Kickstarter exclusive version as well, so that I can check it out next to this version. It's going to look super, super cool. But again, massive is an understatement. But for another comparison, and then for one of the more humorous size comparisons, we have the Beasts of the Mesozoic Ceratopsian series Zuniceratops next to our T-Rex. And you can see, again, how incredibly small that Zuniceratops is in comparison to the 1/18th scale Tyrannosaurus. Such a huge difference, and also just showing you the range of amazing species created by the Beasts of the Mesozoic line. Like, they are honestly one of, if not the best, dinosaur figure producers in the world. There is no doubt about that. There's just so many incredible obscure species in every single figure. They give it their all on to make sure you get an amazing release, and I think just looking at these two right next to each other really shows you that. And of course, I know one size comparison people are aching to probably see would be the 1/18th scale Rex next to the Triceratops, and you can definitely see a very cool comparison between these two, as they make one heck of a killer diorama for sure. And this is obviously the alternate paint variant of the Triceratops, as we have the original Triceratops, and then this one was released after. But this definitely shows you again how they size up next to each other, and shows you that they both look amazing together. But don't worry, because we also have the original version of the Triceratops here next to the T-Rex as well. Again, just to show you how cool they look together. They look amazing, and I can't even imagine the awesome dioramas that could be created using these two. And then to really iron out some Beasts of the Mesozoic comparisons, we have the Medusaceratops, the fan's choice version, next to our T-Rex, again, just to show off how these size up next to each other as well. But for one final comparison, We've got a plethora of other figures here in comparison, as we have two Mattel figures, one of which you can't even actually see because the Diabloceratops is blocking it, but there is a Dilophosaurus back there. You can also see we have the Schleich Diabloceratops, who I just mentioned. We have another Mattel figure back there with the Velociraptor. There is also the Collect A Deluxe Dimetrodon and the Safari Ltd Tyrannosaurus, all next to the gigantic T-Rex from the Beasts of the Mesozoic Tyrannosaur series, which clearly towers over everything here. And if you're wondering why I didn't bring in my 1/35th scale version of the T-Rex to compare with this one, well, I plan on comparing those two in the next 1/35th scale T-Rex review. So we'll check the 1/18th scale version out next to the 1/35th scale version in my next Rex review. But you can again see that the 1/18th scale Rex is massive, no doubt about that. So one thing that the Beasts of the Mesozoic is always good for is giving us some of the most impressive dinosaur figures that you will ever see in your entire life. And yet again, this is a great example of that, and potentially the best example, because I feel like this Rex is the single most impressive and most beautiful of all of the Beasts of the Mesozoic figures I have taken a look at so far. There's been some incredible releases from this line in the past, but this 1/18th scale T-Rex just has such a amazing presence to it. Like, words really don't do this justice. If you happen to have placed an order for this when again the Kickstarter was going on, or even currently with the pre-orders they still have going on, then trust me, you are really going to have one heck of a great day when this begins to ship, and should be, I think, in December potentially. So when this does arrive, you are going to be blown away by the beauty of this Rex. I can tell you that with complete confidence. And another thing that I think the Beasts of the Mesozoic are so good at is making me feel like a kid again, because as much as I, get dinosaur figures, models, toys, all of that stuff, there are very few figures that really give me the feeling that the Beasts of the Mesozoic figures give me. Like, there's so many times where I'll open a dinosaur and I'll pull it up here and I'll start to review it, and although I love what I see and, it's a great figure, I just don't get that childlike feeling, that childlike excitement that I do with the Beasts of the Mesozoic. There's just something about this line that is so special, and always just makes me feel like a kid again. I get that excitement that I had as a child opening dinosaur toys. And it's something that, it's just hard to replicate. You can't force it. It's just something that comes natural. And the Beasts of the Mesozoic line always gives me that feeling, which is just another of the many reasons I love this line and everything that David Silva is doing. And again, this T-Rex honestly should be like the poster boy for the Beasts of the Mesozoic, because it doesn't get more impressive or more beautiful than this. The sculpt is insanely beautiful. Like, incredible detailing throughout. Visually, one of the most impressive things that I've ever seen. There's just detail for days on this Rex, and on top of that, the paintwork is phenomenal on this. Like, there's so many different tones of color, and it's all been applied in ways that the paint complements the sculpt and the sculpt complements the paint, because they are so good at applying washes and dry brushing in ways that just look so natural, so lifelike. And again, they do yet another great job of taking some really bright, very flashy colors, along with some dark colors as well, and applying them to this figure to give it a really natural look. And again, showing you that dinosaurs can be flashy looking and still look like that's exactly how they look in real life. And again, even though I usually prefer darker tones, which this does have its fair share of, I, again, am always blown away by how impressive the coloration and paint schemes of the Beasts of the Mesozoic figures always are, and how much they kind of prove to me that they don't have to just be dark tones to look really nice and natural. And then on top of everything, you have amazing articulation that seems to work really nicely, although some of my joints are currently a little stiff here on this. I have to loosen those up, but I'm sure, again, as per usual with this figure, and as it has always been with all of my Beasts of the Mesozoic figures, once I loosen those joints up, they'll work like a charm, and again, create so many different poses and display options for my Rex. So again, as a whole, absolutely one of, if not the most impressive Beasts of the Mesozoic figures that I have ever seen, And I would say it's my new favorite of all of the Beasts of the Mesozoic figures that I have in my collection, which is almost all of them outside of the Raptor series. I have quite a few of those I still need to get, but saying this is amazing just absolutely does not do it justice. So make sure you get your pre-order in while you still can. Again, before they start shipping, you don't want to have to wait until after they're shipping and everything to get your order in. You really want to get the pre-order in now, so as soon as they begin shipping, you can get your Rex on your doorstep and add this beautiful, beautiful Tyrannosaur to your collection. Again, you can purchase this particular paint scheme in 1/18th and 1/35th scale, so you have your options between getting this super huge version or the smaller version, which I am also going to be adding to my collection because I just can't help myself. Regardless, again, make sure you check the links in the description. Go grab this amazing Tyrannosaurus. Also, I want to give a huge shout out to David Silva and a thank you for sending this one over a little bit early so that I could get a review up of it and, again, hype you guys up for the release that is right around the corner. So thank you so much to David, and also make sure you, again, check those links out, pre-order your Rex, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.